Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a mountain of dense source material research, articles, data, and turn it into accessible, synthesized insight tailored just for you. Our subject today is massive, both in scale and in economic importance: the agricultural landscape of India.
And when we say scale, we really have to start with this foundational fact that just jumps out from all the sources.
What's that?
2/3 of India's massive population, I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of people, are actively engaged in agriculture. This isn't just an economic sector. For so many, it's the dominant way of life.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to get past that simple word, farming, and really explore the huge spectrum of cultivation methods, the rigid calendar that governs everything.
And the essential crops, the ones that feed the nation, but also critically provide raw materials for industry and for global exports.
It's the ultimate link between nature and the economy. I mean, agriculture provides the raw inputs for everything from textiles to beverages.
Right. It generates those crucial exports like tea, coffee, spices, but it also supplies things you might not think about, like non-food industrial inputs.
Like what?
Think about oil seeds. They form the base of soap, cosmetics, ointments. It really does underpin nearly everything.
What's so fascinating right from the start is that we're not dealing with just one single modern system.
No, not at all.
Our sources make it clear that cultivation methods in India are always evolving, always adapting to the physical environment, to new technology, and to these deep sociocultural practices.
And that results in this incredible spectrum of farming philosophies, all operating at the same time. You have the most basic traditional methods right alongside high-tech commercial enterprises.
That tension, between tradition and modernity, between just feeding your family and commercial pressure, that feels like the central thread we'll be following.
I think so. Let's unpack those three radically different systems that are operating side by side today.
All right, let's start in the very beginning with the deep roots. Primitive subsistence farming. What does that actually look like on the ground?
It's precisely what the name suggests. It's farming for survival. It's done on these small, often isolated patches of land using really rudimentary tools.
Like a hoe or digging sticks?
Exactly. A hoe, a dowel, digging sticks, and it relies entirely on family or community labor. The key thing to remember is that it depends completely on the monsoon and the natural fertility of the soil. There are zero modern inputs.
And the defining feature of this system is what many people call slash-and-burn agriculture. Could you walk us through that process?
Sure. The farmer clears a small patch of land, maybe by cutting down some vegetation, and then they burn it.
And the ash provides nutrients, right?
A temporary burst of nutrients, yes. They grow their crops until the soil fertility drops off, usually just after a season or two. Then, and this is the crucial part, they shift to a fresh patch of land.
So they just move on.
They move on. This allows the original patch to lie fallow, giving nature time to replenish the soil naturally through, forest regeneration.
It's basically a nomadic form of agriculture.
Yeah.
And our source material gives us this great sort of human lens on this with the story of Rinsha in Difu, Assam.
Oh, right. The young girl.
Yeah, she's helping her family clear and burn land. It sounds almost idyllic, but the work is driven by the hard fact that the soil on their current patch is just giving out.
That little story perfectly illustrates the fragility and the temporary nature of this whole practice. It's a low-output, high-effort system that is under immense strain today.
How so?
Well, the system works in theory, letting the land recover. But in reality, the availability of fresh patches of land is rapidly shrinking.
Because of population growth.
Population growth and also government restrictions on deforestation. So Rinsha's family today faces a much tougher choice about where to shift next than their ancestors ever did.
It's amazing, though, how widespread this ancient practice is. I mean, the sources list all these different regional names for it.
Oh, absolutely. Internationally, this slash and burn method is called milpa in Mexico, roca in Brazil, and ladang in Indonesia.
And within India itself.
The hyper-local nature of agriculture means this one method has tons of names. What Rinsha is doing in the Northeast is generally called shimming, but you travel a bit and suddenly it's Pamlu in Manipur or Kumari in the Western Ghats or Biwar in Madhya Pradesh.
The fact that every region has its own name for it just shows how deeply woven into the local identity it is.
It really does.
Okay, let's move up the scale now, away from that reliance on natural recovery to intensive subsistence farming. This one is defined almost tragically by population pressure.
This is where you see the intense struggle for maximization. It's incredibly labor-intensive. It often uses high doses of biochemical inputs and irrigation, all aimed at one thing: extracting the highest possible output from a very small area.
And the context here is key. India's right of inheritance law means land is constantly being divided among the next generation,
Exactly. So the plots get smaller and smaller with each generation.
becoming more and more uneconomical.
Right. So when you have a massive population relying on this fragmented land, and they often don't have other ways to make a living in, say, the industrial or service sectors,
They have no choice.
they're forced to exert this enormous year-round pressure on the little bit of land they have. They're literally fighting the economics of a shrinking plot just to survive.
That really makes the shift to the third category, commercial farming, seem almost inevitable in the long run. What defines this modern end of the spectrum?
Commercial farming is all about modernization. It's defined by heavy investment in higher doses of modern inputs.
So we're talking high-yielding variety seeds.
High-yielding variety, or HYV, seeds, powerful chemical fertilizers, targeted insecticides, pesticides, the works. It's all geared toward generating higher productivity for sale, not just for the family kitchen.
Here's the key aha moment for you, the listener, which is so crucial for understanding Indian agriculture.
What's that?
The sources note that the definition of commercial isn't about the crop itself. It's about the intent and the location.
That's so true. Take rice, for instance. If you are growing rice in Punjab or Haryana, you are almost certainly using extensive irrigation and HYV seeds to maximize your yield for sale to the market. It is, without a doubt, a commercial crop there.
But that exact same grain, rice, grown in Odisha.
It's a subsistence crop. It's grown primarily to feed the farmer's family, maybe with a small surplus sold at the local market. So commercialization is purely a factor of scale, investment, and market focus, not the plant you're growing.
And a part of commercial farming is plantations, which are a highly specialized and industrialized form.
Yeah, they sound less like traditional farming and more like factories that happen to be outdoors.
That's a great way to put it. They are the interface of agriculture and industry. A plantation grows a single crop on a massive area of land.
And they are capital intensive, requiring specialized inputs, often relying on migrant laborers, and critically, they need a well-developed network of transport and communication.
To get the product from the field to the factory to the market.
Exactly. To link the plantation area to the processing industries and finally to the consumer. You see this perfectly with the massive tea estates in Assam, or coffee in the hills of Karnataka, or industrial production of sugarcane, rubber, and banana.
Those crops are basically part of a complex supply chain from the moment the seed hits the ground.
They are.
Okay, so let's pivot. We've talked about the philosophy and the systems of farming. Now let's talk about the elemental force that governs everything in India, the calendar.
Right. The agricultural year is governed by the monsoon, and it's split into 3 powerful, distinct cropping seasons.
And this structural difference is absolutely vital, isn't it?
It is. Whether it's a high-tech commercial farm or a tiny subsistence plot, all farming in India is ultimately dictated by this clock: Rabi, Kharif, and the short Zaid season.
Let's start with Rabi. These are the winter crops, often central to the northern Indian diet.
Rabi crops are sown right as winter starts, so October to December, and they're harvested in the summer from April to June.
And the staples here are things like wheat, barley, peas.
Wheat, barley, peas, gram, and mustard.
Correct. These are most successful across the north and northwestern plains. Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh. But what's the environmental support system? How do these crops thrive during a typically dry Indian winter?
That's the key. The success of the Rabi crop is significantly helped by winter precipitation.
Winter rain.
Exactly. It falls because of these weather systems known as Western temperate cyclones. They are these storms that originate over the Mediterranean and move eastward, bringing this much-needed, though sometimes sporadic, rainfall to the northern plains.
So those weather systems are critical for a good wheat harvest.
Absolutely. And when you couple that natural boost with the massive investment in irrigation canals, tube wells, and the technology from the Green Revolution, especially in Punjab and Western UP.
You get the twin pillars that supported that explosive growth of wheat.
Exactly. It turned those regions into the food basket of India.
Okay, moving on to Kharif. This is the true monsoon season, the absolute lifeblood of Indian agriculture.
Kharif crops are grown with the onset of the monsoon, and they are harvested as the monsoon retreats, so from roughly September to October. This is the season for staples like paddy, which is rice.
And maize, jowar, bajra, cotton, jute.
Groundnut soybeans, all the big ones.
Paddy is the classic kharif crop. You see it in the high rainfall regions. Assam, West Bengal, coastal Odisha. But as we said earlier, modern irrigation has allowed states like Punjab and Haryana to become huge paddy growers too.
It has, and that's a massive logistical and, frankly, ecological commitment. The production is so intensive, in fact, that in the high rainfall zones of Assam, West Bengal, and Odisha, they often grow 3 crops of paddy in a single year.
3 crops a year.
3. They're known locally as Assam, Amman, and Boro. That just shows you how vital rice is to the culture and economy in those regions.
And finally, squeezed in between these 2 main acts is the Zaid season.
Zaid is that brief, hot summer season that links the Rabi harvest and the Kharif planting. Since it's so short, it's all about fast-growing crops.
Like watermelon, cucumber.
Watermelon, muskmelon, cucumber, vegetables, and fodder crops for livestock. The one big exception is sugarcane, which takes almost a full year to mature and kind of straddles all these calendar divisions.
Okay, so now that we get the calendar, let's connect the major food grains to the specific climates they need. And we have to start with the staple, rice.
India is the second largest global producer, right after China. As a kharif crop, it's very thirsty and heat-loving. It needs high temperatures, specifically above 25 degrees Celsius, plus high humidity, and the annual rainfall has to be over 100 centimeters.
Which explains why it naturally thrives in those deltaic high rainfall zones. But you mentioned the shift to low rainfall areas like Punjab. What's the trade-off there?
Well, human engineering overrides nature, but there's always a cost. The development of dense canal networks and tube wells lets rice grow in arid regions, but it requires a massive withdrawal of groundwater.
So while it ensures food security,
it raises really serious long-term questions about water sustainability in those otherwise dry areas, a classic environmental cost of success.
Right. Now shifting to wheat, the main food crop of the North and Northwest.
Wheat is a Rabi crop. It needs a cool growing season, but importantly, it demands bright sunshine right at the time of ripening for the best yield.
And its rainfall needs are much lower than rice.
Much lower, about 50 to 75 centimeters, ideally distributed evenly. You see it dominating the Ganga-Satluj plains and the Deccan black soil region. This is a crop that, along with rice, really defined the initial success of the Green Revolution.
Let's talk about millets next. They're often dismissed as coarse grains, but the sources really emphasize their nutritional value.
They're nutritional powerhouses. Jowar, bajra, and ragi are packed with nutrients, making them so important for local food security. Ragi, for example, is rich in iron, calcium, and roughage.
And they're quite hardy, right?
Very. Jowar is the third most important food crop, mostly rain-fed, grown mainly in Maharashtra and Karnataka. Bajra, meanwhile, grows well on sandy and shallow black soil, so Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh are major producers.
And then there's maize, serving that dual purpose as both food and fodder.
Correct. It's typically a kharif crop. It thrives in temperatures between 21 and 27 degrees Celsius, and it grows best in old alluvial soil. And like wheat and rice, its production has just shot up thanks to modern inputs like HYV seeds.
Interesting.
It's also worth noting that its seasonality is starting to break down. In states like Bihar, they're now successfully growing it during the Rabi season as well.
Before we move on, we have to touch on pulses, the great protein powerhouse of India.
Absolutely. India holds this unique global position. It's the world's largest producer and the world's largest consumer of pulses.
That's incredible.
It is. And they are the main source of protein for a massive vegetarian population. We're talking about tur, urad, moong, masoor, peas, and gram.
And beyond their nutritional value, they play this crucial ecological role.
They really do. They are mostly leguminous crops. Arhar is the key exception, which means they have the ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen in the soil.
So they're natural fertilizers.
Basically, yes. This is why they're so valuable for crop rotation. By planting pulses after a demanding crop like wheat or rice, the farmer can naturally restore the land's fertility and reduce the need for expensive chemical fertilizers.
But promoting that kind of rotation can be a challenge, can't it? A farmer might prefer to plant a more profitable, soil-depleting cash crop instead of pulses.
Absolutely. And this brings us right back to the central tension we talked about. The ecological benefit of rotation often clashes with the immediate economic pressures the farmer is facing.
Okay, now let's look at crops that feed industry, starting with sugarcane.
Sugarcane is a tropical and subtropical crop that needs a hot and humid environment temperatures between 21 and 27 degrees Celsius and a lot of rain typically 75 to 100 centimeters a year.
And it's a huge crop for India.
Huge. India is the second largest producer in the world after Brazil. It's the primary raw material for sugar, gur or jaggery, kansari, and molasses. It's fundamental to the processing industry.
Oilseeds cover a significant area as well, about 12% of cropped land. And they are incredibly versatile.
They really are. Most are edible and used daily as cooking mediums. Groundnut is a major kharif crop, and it accounts for about half of India's major oilseeds, with Gujarat leading the way in production.
But their use goes way beyond food.
Far beyond. They are the essential base material for producing soaps, cosmetics, and medicinal ointments. And we see seasonal variety here too. Linseed and mustard are rabi crops, while castor seed is unique because it's grown in both the rabi and kharif seasons.
Let's move to the high-value beverage crops, starting with tea.
Tea cultivation, famously introduced by the British, is a prime example of a successful plantation crop. It demands a very specific environment: deep, fertile, well-drained soil that's rich in humus.
And the climate has to be just right.
Exactly. It needs a warm, moist, and critically, a frost-free climate. That's why it thrives in these specialized geographies of Assam and North Bengal. The labor requirements are also intense, supporting a huge workforce.
And then there's coffee, where India contributes the world-renowned Arabica variety.
That Arabica variety, which was initially brought from Yemen, is known for its quality and fetches premium prices on the global market.
And its cultivation is really concentrated, isn't it?
Very. It's geographically concentrated in the hills of the Nilgiri region, which spans parts of Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. Again, this just highlights how specific microclimates dictate high-value crop production.
We absolutely cannot overlook horticulture. It's a massive area of specialization, and one where India is a global leader.
That's right. India is the second largest producer of fruits and vegetables in the world, just after China. It's a huge source of nutrition and export revenue.
And this is where regional specialization is most obvious.
Totally. You get mangoes from Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh, oranges from Nagpur and Cherrapunji, and high-value apples from Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. The diversity of the produce just mirrors the diversity of the climate.
Okay, finally, let's wrap up with non-food industrial crops that are essential for manufacturing. Let's start with jute, the golden fiber.
Jute is demanding. It grows best on well-drained, fertile soils, specifically in floodplains where the soil is renewed every year by silt deposits. It also needs high temperatures during its growth cycle.
And its use.
It's critical for producing gunny bags, mats, ropes, carpets, and all sorts of artifacts. It's concentrated mainly in West Bengal, Bihar, and Assam.
And lastly, rubber, the essential raw material for countless products.
Rubber is an equatorial crop, but it adapts well to special tropical and subtropical conditions found in South India. It requires very high rainfall, over 200 centimeters a year, and consistently high temperatures, above 25 degrees Celsius. This industrial raw material is primarily grown in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka.
So after this journey through the entire landscape, what does this deep dive into Indian agriculture ultimately mean for you, the listener?
It means that the food on your table, the soap you use, even the tires on your car are all tied to this unbelievably diverse and deeply complex agricultural reality.
Right. We've synthesized a system that simultaneously employs Rinja's family clearing land with primitive tools in the Northeast.
And utilizes these vast, capital-intensive plantations in the South with specialized transport networks.
We've seen how farming in India is in this constant negotiation between ancient tradition and modern necessity, demanding massive irrigation in one state while relying purely on the unpredictable nature of the monsoon in another.
And it has to adapt every single day to the pressure of population density and shrinking land holdings.
The discussion really highlighted the economic struggles that are just baked into the system, especially that constant need to maximize output from limited land.
Which brings us back to our central tension, and it raises an important question for you to consider.
What's that?
Given the intense pressure on land and the increasing global demand for high-value export crops like that world-renowned Arabica coffee or high-quality tea we talked about, how might this commercial pull further reshape land use patterns that are currently dedicated to producing essential staple crops for domestic food security in India?
A shift towards high-value exports could bring in immediate capital, but it fundamentally alters the local food ecosystem. That push and pull between export dollars and domestic calories is something worth mulling over long after this deep dive ends. Thank you for joining us.